Hello, welcome to the Jers TV, and our special guest today is Mark Dingwall from Follow. How you doing, Mark?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. I'm trying out different specs. I got new specs and tried them out in about 3 games and realised that they weren't working. So I'm kind of, if you're asking me much about the game yesterday, I can tell you through a blur.
Well, I was similar, but that was through a drunken blur.
You've got to have a hobby. Keeps you off the streets.
It was a great performance yesterday, very professional.
I thought so. And I think we should also maybe pay a wee bit of tribute to Queen's Park, who certainly neither chucked the rag in, and they didn't resort to what would have happened in the old days, was they would have resorted to trying to kick us off the pitch. 5-0 at half-time tells its own story for us. I think some of the highlights were Diomande Sterling getting a full first half. I think obviously the managers previously talked about him and managing his minutes, so he get his 45. And then if you look at some of the other guys that were in the team, then obviously, it was quite impressive with Romans has certainly impressed me in the time that he's been in. Skov Olsen looks class. Antman,
Much better. Again,
looking pretty good. There's he got interviewed after the game, but that's not allowed to go out until 12 noon today. So you should be able to see that. Nadiri, looking good. Majovsky, although it was a bit of his goal with a head wasn't really picture perfect, kind of sclaffed off him, wasn't really, off the training ground. But, it's good that he's getting back into scoring ways. I think he's disappointed us a little bit with his scoring rate, but seems to be getting back there, just at the right time.
Yeah, and obviously James Tavernier, hat-trick.
Yeah, I'm a great fan of Tav's, although I have the habit of calling him Tavernier, even though I know that's not the right pronunciation. I just can't stop myself from doing that. And I like to say this is what his 10th season with us. It's a kind of reminder almost of a bygone age of player
Loyalty,
service and player loyalty. Haven't seen anything so far about him receiving a testimonial, though this is obviously a testimonial year. I think he was very harshly treated by sections of the support over the last year, where I think he was taking the blame and taking the frustration of the fans that probably wasn't deserved. There was a few of them, to be honest, were talking what I would call Timmy talk, mocking his the number of trophies that he'd lifted. And I think that's unfair, because ultimately where we've been, the journey we've been on back, and the decisions that have been made by the board have got more influence on what's happening in the pitch than James Tavernier ever had.
Yeah, and a wee bit inside me, I was thinking last night, yesterday when I watched the game, Philip Clement was probably watching that and thinking, yeah, useless so-and-sos. If he's only took one of the chances last season, because Rangers pummeled Queen's Park last season, but they couldn't score, and ultimately that cost him his job.
Yeah.
Yesterday we took all our chances.
I'm not sure quite how many of the Queen's Park players from last year played yesterday.
I think the goalkeeper.
Certainly the goalkeeper, yeah. And Tav was credited with a hat-trick yesterday, which made his 150th competitive goal as a senior pro. I think the goalie actually tried to punch it and it sclaffed off him. So whether you could argue that was an OG might be
Tavernier won't care.
But it's been credited to him by the BBC and Flash Score and whoever. So I think we can say congratulations to Tav on reaching that milestone. And I believe there's somebody it might be Papach, about Rangers' highest scoring defender in the modern era, something like 24 goals.
Aye, and then
Easy.
Tavernier.
You know, so well done, Tav.
Yeah, and the game is played like a traditional Scottish Cup tie, as you said. Queen's Park took the game to Rangers. There was a difference in quality, and also there was a difference in finishing. But we're actually now starting to finish chances.
You know what? There's nothing like goals for confidence. And if you look at some players get 2 goals, Tav get 3, and that does wonders for your confidence. You know that things are against competitive opposition, maybe not the best level of competitive opposition, but nevertheless, they are a well organised side. So that'll do them wonders in preparation for these 2 huge games we've got coming up this week against Motherwell and against Hearts. I think Motherwell, do they deserve the hype that they've been getting in the press? I would have to say probably yes, because considering where they've come from and the new manager with the slightly unpronounceable name has done wonders for them. He's been getting them results, some of them unexpected. Some of them performances that I've managed to take in have been pretty good. So quite what Danny Rowe's going to do to counter, the threats that they do have. As we noticed yesterday, it was a reversion to the old 4-4-2, which I think most people like. Yeah. Davy Heard had him interviewed Davy after the game, and he's saying, well, I love 4-4-2, but in the modern game, you would, if you played the 2 strikers up front, kind of, let's say like McCoist and Haitley, then you would probably find yourself under a lot of pressure in the midfield because, you'd be lacking a player in there. And I think he's got a point, but I think it could be some games as they develop, I think you could actually play with the 2 out-and-out strikers up front.
Yeah, I mean, Danny Rowe's made it clear, horses for courses. If the game requires a change of formation, he'll be quite happy to do that. And he's now got 2 players for each position, so we're well equipped and well adapted to do the different formations now.
You know what? It's been remarkable, and it is early days yet since the winter transfer window, but the four signings look good.
Yeah,
got to say that they really look the part. I think to Ramens, if I've got the pronunciation correct,
he's a big one to me.
There's something about him, isn't there? There's just solidity that we've really been dying for at the back. He looks the part. Scov Olsen's got a few tricks. Does he remind you of Laudrup? Not really, but he's got that kind of aura about him that he's deadly. And you can see him hanging back and just waiting for the right time to come in. It's almost effortless in the way that he plays.
Well, his first couple of games, I noticed that some of the players weren't up to kind of speed what his kind of movement would be. So he was maybe doing runs that they weren't prepared for. So that'll take a couple of weeks in training.
Well, the old Palaver's Rambo Jambo.
Yeah,
I remember asking Rambo, who's the favourite Hearts player of all time, and he said Derek Ferguson. I said, great player. Had his problems with us, but I always remember him and Ray Wilkins and Ian Durant playing in midfield, and it was like the old line with the 2 young cubs. But I was still a wee bit surprised that he said that, and he said, well, he maybe doesn't get the same credit. He said because he'd such a good football brain. He was thinking 2 and 3 passes ahead and moving for that when some of the players around him weren't of the same standard as maybe they had been at Ibrox. So, I think you've maybe got something there.
Another talking point, Mark, is very interesting. People are now asking, how do we keep Mikey Moore? I nearly said Mikey Moser. How do we keep Mikey Moore next season? Everyone's wanting for another season now. There's so much potential, but the better he gets, the more likely it is that Spurs are going to want him back.
I think the only thing that will keep him with us is the chaos at Spurs. I mean, that's all you're getting out of Spurs is that they're a club in permanent crisis, that they're making crazy decisions. The manager's an issue, Glenelg. That wonderful new stadium. I've not been in what we could call New White Hart Lane, but people who've been there say it's very impressive. They're set up for being a top flight club, but the results aren't coming, and you've got players who think they're bigger than the manager, and so it's chaos down there. I don't think we'll find out about Mikey Moore until the end of the season, once things are settled with Spurs. He himself, when he's been interviewed, saying that he's all his family, whether of Scottish descent or Millwall fans, have got a great regard for Rangers, and he's got a bit of a link there. As well know, I think the Millwall itself were formed mostly by Scottish dockers or people working in the I believe the jam industry. Strangely enough, in London there was a lot of Scotsmen down there, so hence they're lying rampant on their badge. But I think there's more to come from him.
Yeah,
I don't think, and he's not the finished article, but he is coming into a good game, playing well. Holds the ball up. All the basics been done very, very well, and I think he's now starting to play with a bit more confidence and freedom, that he's pushing himself maybe out of his allotted position.
He's very well adapted to the Scottish game as well.
Yeah, he certainly knows how to ride a tackle, which is some people say it's the Scottish game. I tend to think it's maybe the Scottish referees, where they're not quite as quick and not quite as decisive as English referees are, and don't protect the players quite as much. So that standard of refereeing allows the standard of football to be a little bit rougher. Some would say a little bit faster, but I think that's open for debate. And but he seems to cope with whatever's thrown at him.
Yeah. So the big talking point after last night's result was the draw. You just mentioned the big games that are coming up in the next week for Rangers, but one thing that can't be denied is Scottish football this season has been thoroughly entertaining. Probably the best season in terms of excitement in a long time. And we now have a position where I think if Rangers can win the 2 games against Celtic in a week, they'll win the double. However, if they were to lose them, it'll probably go the opposite way. It's really that close, I think.
Yeah, it's fairly fine margins, and I think what we underestimate, and I think what comes out of Celtic fans' mouths is they underestimate is quite how expensively assembled their squad is. And I've mentioned this before, but if you look at their squad of players, they haven't come in the cheap. There's a lot of money been spent, and I think transfer market, when I looked at that, probably values them about 50 million more than we do. So, more than they value the Rangers squad. So I wouldn't like us to go to sleep and assume that we're going to have any easy games against them, despite the results and the performances we have already had this season. So and then if you look at Hearts, I'm probably the same as everybody else. I expected Hearts to kind of fail a wee bit come the turn of the year, with the squad they've got not been as deep as Rangers and Celtic, but with 3 key men missing, they've more or less continued in the same way.
They're still top.
So it's all to play for. I mean, if you consider where we were earlier in the season, this is an unbelievable situation to be in. I thought we'd effectively written off the season earlier in the year, and to be where we are now is a fantastic bonus. I don't think there's... Well, there is a pressure in trying to get into the Champions League, which as well known is up in the air, whether Olympiacos win the Greek League or whatever. I'll leave that for the statisticians to bore you to death with. But so there is that cherry hanging there, but I didn't think we'd be in a position to think about that, you know. So we're in there, we're fighting away. There is the kind of I think every neutral be rooting for Hearts, which I think is pretty natural, you know.
Aye,
the first team out with the Old Firm in 40 years to win the league, and then you know the Tims with their usual, you know, one hand their braggadocio in one hand and their despair in the other, and somewhere else they've got this idea that they're the greatest club that the world has ever seen, and that they nearly got a draw with Bayern Munich, which implies that they would have won the Champions League last year. So it's all to play for, and I'm enjoying the ride, to be honest. You know, we're getting our act together slowly but surely, and if that ends up with we're getting a prize or two, then I wouldn't really welcome the job of being the historian that has to write and explain this season to future generations, you know, because it's really, really remarkable.
We'll leave that to McElroy. I'm sure he'll enjoy that. So, last question, mate. The big talking point, the debate. Everybody's got an opinion on this. The allocation. Celtic's been drawn at Ibrox, and it's a quarter-final of the Scottish Cup. Now, there's certain rules that are different from the league rules, but I also believe there was, and I don't know if because the boards have all changed now, but I think there was a kind of a friendly agreement with both clubs at the Old Firm that they wouldn't get the allocation that they can get the full. What's your opinion on that, and what do you think will actually happen now? Because it's different board members and new owners at the clubs.
My understanding is that Rangers have not contacted Celtic for a nice chat, and I believe that Rangers have not contacted Celtic to say business as usual, and Celtic have not contacted Rangers to say business as usual. You know, any correspondence between the clubs has been, you know, very official. No warmth, no business as usual, and no coming together to agree things. We mentioned our pal Robert McElroy there, and in a McElroy-esque moment, I've actually got the SFA's rules for the cup in front of me, and so it says, for any match excluding the semi-final and the final, to which admission is wholly or partly by ticket, blah blah blah, the away club shall have the right to claim admission for its supporters of up to 20% of the spectator capacity of the registered ground. Right? Yep. The next section then says, but this is subject to them being accommodated in an area of the ground which is agreed by both clubs and the police, taking cognizance of the Safety at Sports Ground 1975 where appropriate. So they could claim for 10,000 tickets. They could claim, you know, they officially could claim for 10,000 tickets. And I think the Broomlin stand holds just over 7,500. Would we give them the corner? Probably not. I've certainly been in the corner with our old pal Bearwood Bear many yonks ago during an Old Firm game. So I think whether you know you or I like it or not, I'm unrepentant. I don't want any of them in ever again. You know, and whether that means they don't let our guys into Parkhead, frankly, I don't care, because I think the behaviour of both their fans and their club in enabling their fans, some of the displays that we've seen are utterly despicable, unforgivable, and in a normal country would have seen the club banned and their ground shut down. You know, I'm talking here about, in particular, the banning, the hanging of effigies of Rangers fans in Orangemen, all those unbelievably numbered displays they've had promoting the genocidal, murderous and sectarian IRA, and that's done with the full knowledge of the club. I think it's completely disgusting, shouldn't be happening in a civilised country. So they'll probably get the full broomy. That's my prediction. There'll be about 7,500 of them there.
Yeah, well, my opinion on it is Celtic are at war with their board, and their board are at war with their support. It's a great PR move for their board if they want to try and put the hand of friendship out to them. If they apply for the whole Brimley Road and they probably get it, it would probably be a good move in terms of what they're trying to do. So I think they won't care about any gentleman's agreement in the past, and I think they'll ask for it. And I think you're right. I think they'll get it. I'm in Tenerife that weekend, so I'd be happy critical to say that I'm happy for them to get that, or unhappy, because it wouldn't affect me ticket-wise. I wouldn't be at the game anyway. But I would like to
use your ticket, Simon. So.
Aye, somebody will take it, But it's unfair for the fans in the Broomlow Road as well. Why them? It could be the argument, but that's what's going to happen. I think they'll get the full Broomlow Road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's pretty much sealed. I mean, if you look at the way that the media have been bleating over months about how unfair Rangers are, and we need this atmosphere. Well, when we get banned for grounds or we come under hassle, there's never any talk about, we need the atmosphere. It's Rangers fans are poisonous, blah, 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 blah. As soon as, the boot's on the other foot, suddenly it becomes Celtic fans, provide this jovial, wonderful atmosphere. The fact that it all consists of genocidalist chants and highly offensive chants about the Ibrox disaster, etc., that all gets forgotten. Doesn't get with us, it's forgotten with them.
It will also bring up the debate that in future, did they bring it back? But when McCann started all this carry on, you have to remember that Rangers got the whole old traditional Celtic end before they turned into a car park. And Rangers are never going to get that. So even that would be a one-sided debate, because Rangers would be in a corner with polls and restricted views, whereas you're wanting the full Brimley Road back.
Yeah, I mean, it's. What you've just got to accept is that Celtic are Celtic. They've got a Celtic mentality, and when that comes to dealing with other clubs, it's mean, it's unpleasant, it's playing the rules to anything that advantages them. Shameless, no sportsmanship whatsoever. They'll bring out anything, each and every excuse, and so that's what you're dealing with. That you're permanently at war with them because they want to be at war, because that's their mentality. Forget sportsmanship, forget being sensible, forget being fair. It's a Celtic they're talking about.
Yeah,
and that's the way there.
When likely will the fans know when this decision's made then? Because it will have to be soon.
It's going to be within a couple of weeks, isn't it? Because the mechanics of getting the ticket set up is going to take not too long. I mean, here we are, the 9th of February, so
it's a month away.
Yeah, 4 weeks away to get that sorted. I mean, I've no doubt whatever we do, they'll be bleating.
They'll be wrong. Aye.
Just they can't help themselves.
Just to that one away. Aye, so no, I think that's covered us for the day, mate. It's interesting stuff. It'll be interesting to see what decisions made on it, but I think, most people know it's most likely it's going to be that Rangers get the 3 stands and Celtic get the Broomlow Road.
You know what? There was a time when, as you say, when we used to get, I think the old Celtic end used to hold 19,000. Sorry, the old Rangers end at Parkhead. 19,000. It was quite a sight to see, and it's sad that people can't see sites like that again. But again, there's only one club that's down to, and it ain't us. So, what used to happen is gone, and it's because one club's highly unpleasant and highly aggressive. So the rest of us just have to suffer as usual.
Anyway, we're in a title fight, and we're in a fight for the Scottish Cup now, and it's going to be an exciting 2 months for Scottish football, but more importantly, an exciting time for the famous Glasgow Rangers. Thank you very much, Mark.
You're welcome.